What's up, kids? This is Professor John. He runs a YouTube channel called Predictive History where he uses game theory models to predict real-life geopolitical events. One of his videos from 2024 blew up recently where he predicted the current Iranian situation with America and Israel in great detail. Let's look at some of his predictions that came true.
It's very likely that Trump will become president of the United States again in November.
So yeah, Trump did win the 2024 election. Now, Zhang gives like the 5 justifications for the Iranian war, and every single one of them was deployed by Trump.
Trump goes on TV and explains to the American public why the United States is fighting this war. Okay? And this is what Trump says. First, he says that for the past year, there have been violent protests in Iran. They want democracy. They want freedom. And in response, the Revolutionary Guard are killing thousands of protesters.
And just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested.
Okay, so the first reason is freedom and democracy.
To the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. For many years, you have asked for America's help. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach.
Second, U.S. intelligence, along with Israeli intelligence, have discovered that for the past 2 years, Iran has been working very, very hard on developing a nuclear bomb so that New York City, San Francisco, and Los Angeles could all be destroyed.
It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
So to prevent this, we must strike first to stop Iran's nuclear program.
We were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that.
Third, Iranian proxies, the Houthis, Hezbollah, many groups have been disrupting shipping in the Middle East, in both the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz.
The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels in international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer.
Fourth, Iran has been launching attacks against our allies, Saudi Arabia and Israel. Hezbollah has been violently attacking Israel, killing dozens of Israelis, innocent Israelis. We have an obligation to protect our allies, our friends in the Middle East, okay?
Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before.
And the last reason is we know for a fact that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is a sponsor of terrorism.
Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. The regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts.
This is pretty fucking spooky. You guys still believe in free will?
There's a man named Jared Kushner who is Trump's son-in-law. Jared Kushner happens to be very good friends with both Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the leader of Israel, as well as Mohammed bin Salman, who is the leader of Saudi Arabia. So through Jared Kushner, these three forces are able to exert influence on Trump.
Jiang read the situation like a book. In private calls over the last several weeks, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman reportedly urged President Trump to attack Iran. MBS has significant influence with Trump and Jared Kushner because the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund is the largest investor in Jared Kushner's private equity fund, Affinity Partners. PIF invested $2 billion in Affinity Partners in 2021, even though the PIF committee that screens investments recommended rejecting Kushner's proposal. The committee's recommendation was overruled by MBS himself. So, Kushner is getting paid $25 million annually by MBS or Saudi Arabia. But despite the biggest conflict of interest, Trump installed Kushner as a top negotiator with Iranian officials. What the fuck? This is so much corruption over here.
Trump says that Iran is 1 month from developing a nuclear bomb, right? America has been saying this for the past 10 years. When Trump gives a speech, there's absolutely no evidence that any of this is true, okay? But this is how he will explain the invasion.
According to PBS, Trump's statement is contradicted by a 2025 federal government assessment that said Iran is years away from the ability to produce long-range missiles. Nuclear policy experts also cast doubt on the idea. So to put it plainly, Iran getting nuclear weapons was not an imminent threat. So this is a whole lot of baloney. A federal agency said missiles that could reach the US are years away.
The Iranian people are sick of the Ayatollah. They are sick of the dictatorship. They want democracy. They want freedom. In response, the Revolutionary Guard are killing thousands of protesters. Iran is on the brink of civil war.
More than 36,500 Iranians were killed by security forces during the January 8-9 crackdown on nationwide protests, making it the deadliest two-day protest massacre in history. On Truth Social, Trump also tweeted or truthed or whatever, urging the Iranian patriots to keep protesting and to take over the institutions. He also pledged that help is on its way. So his advisors probably argued that he had to follow through, he had to walk the walk and talk the talk. So I guess that's what happened.
The major conflict in the Middle East is actually not between Israel and Iran, but between Saudi Arabia and Iran. For Saudi Arabia, Iran represents a threat to its very existence. Okay? So Saudi Arabia must resolve the Iran problem soon.
MBS reportedly urged Trump to attack Iran in private calls over several weeks, with Iran being a top regional rival. The lobbying campaign achieved success when Trump announced major combat operations in Iran. Even Saudi Arabia's defense minister got involved. Prince Khalid bin Salman reportedly warned about the risks of not attacking Iran in a meeting with US officials. On to the predictions that Professor Jiang got wrong.
And he will pick Nikki Haley as his VP. That means that Nikki Haley will be the one in the Trump White House pushing for war against Iran.
Trump did not pick Nikki Haley as his VP. Trump actually selected Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio as his candidate for vice president. As Vance is notably more skeptical of Middle East adventurism, the view that someone would be pushing for this war from inside the White House was pretty wrong.
What does Iran want to do? Or basically the Revolutionary Guard Corps. What do they want to do? They want to kill as many Americans as possible, okay? You understand? They want to force an American land invasion, okay? So Iran wants to force a US invasion, knowing that if the US invades, it has to lose the war, okay? It will lose the war. Because the Revolutionary Guard can just send suicide bombers against the United States. Okay?
This framing presents the IRGC as welcoming war as a trap, but what actually happened is that Iran initially tried to negotiate, offering diplomacy and nuclear talks before the strikes began. The lecture implies Iran was actively baiting the US in, but in reality, Iran was publicly trying to avoid the war through back channels. The trap framing may still prove correct as the conflict develops, but it wasn't how Iran behaved leading up to the strikes.
So let's pretend that it's March 2027, okay? And Trump goes on TV. He announces Operation Iranian Freedom, a full-scale US invasion of Iran.
Obviously, we're in 2026 right now, but again, like a full-scale invasion has not happened yet, so let's see. But yeah, I do understand why the professor would have predicted for 2027 because this is a massive political risk on Trump's side. So, any understanding person would see that this sort of thing is better to do after the midterms. Let's move on to future predictions, things that are still playing out. So markers that have not been resolved yet, Russia neutralizing the nuclear threat.
So before this war happened, Iran and Russia must come to an agreement where Putin says from the onset, no one is allowed to use nuclear weapons. If Iran uses nuclear weapons, I will nuke Iran. If the United States uses nuclear weapons, I will nuke the United States. If Israel uses nuclear weapons, I will nuke Israel, okay?
This hasn't fully materialized yet. Russia did condemn the war and condemned the Israeli-American strikes on Iran, but it hasn't provided an explicit nuclear guarantee like the professor describes. Putin held an emergency Security Council meeting after the strikes but published nothing. I mean, I guess the prediction is partially correct in spirit. Russia seems pretty unhappy. So the main topic of the video, the Iran trap, the sunk cost trap.
A massive invasion force is sent to Iran in the south. 100,000 US troops land, maybe 200,000 Saudi Arabia troops land, okay? Maybe you have 200,000 to 500,000 troops in Iran.
Trump has already hinted at this. Trump told the New York Post he's not ruling out sending US ground troops into Iran if they were necessary, adding, I don't have the yeps with respect to boots on the ground. Like every president says, there will be no boots on the ground. I don't say it.
At this point, I think the war has been decided. You have 100,000 US troops in country ready to strike Tehran. Obviously, Iran has won the war. Why? First of all, they're in circle, okay? Because Iran are all mountains. It's a fortress, meaning that to get these troops into the country, you have to airdrop them. Once they're in the country, you can't get them out of the country. Okay, so that's the first problem. They've been encircled. Iran is a population of 90 million people. You will need at least 3 to 4 million soldiers to even think about conquering the country. You can't move tanks through mountains. They're not designed for mountain warfare. They have no supply lines. For them to be resupplied, airplanes have to drop ammunition, food into the country. But again, Iran is all mountains. So it's very easy for Iranians to shoot down the airplanes. When you pass through mountains, you can't see what's on the ground. A random guy with a rocket launcher can just shoot down the helicopter, okay? Which is what the Afghans did against the Soviets in the Afghanistan war. And that's why the Soviets lost the war. A drone can take down any airplanes, okay?
As the war is just beginning, ground troops have not been committed yet. But this is one of the major points of the video itself, that ground troops would be stuck and Iran's mountainous landscape will make it pretty hard for America to defeat it, which is why America will go on to lose the war.
And so this becomes a black hole for the United States, where they can only send in more troops. They can't get any troops out, they can only send in more troops.
So far, the war has been fought with airstrikes and naval forces. If Trump never sends ground troops, the entire black hole comparison doesn't fully materialize.
Why can't you actually resupply your army? Why not? There's a bigger problem than the supply lines. What is it? What do you need to create bullets and ammunition? America has no manufacturing capacity because America moved all its manufacturing capacity to China. So for every one ship that America can build, China can build 232 ships. That's what the Pentagon says. If this war were to happen, there's absolutely no way America can win this war. It's just completely trapped inside Iran. And once it becomes trapped, sunk cost fallacy comes into play, and America just puts in all its resources into the country, but it's a black hole, okay? It cannot use nuclear weapons because Putin has said from the onset, you are not allowed to use nuclear weapons.
This is actively being discussed by defense analysts as the war escalates, though it hasn't yet become a visible breaking point. I mean, yeah, the US is heavily reliant on foreign sources for raw materials and components, including dependencies on rivals like China. Now, this can be severed in a conflict, right? So it is pretty risky. Ironically, the cost structure is not on the side of the capitalists. Iranian drones can cost as little as $20,000 per unit, but they're being shot down by missile interceptors that commonly cost $4 million a pop. Concerns have already emerged that the US, Israel, and the Arab Gulf countries will run out of these expensive interceptors before Iran burns through its airborne weapons. Iranian missiles also have an advantage over American interceptors. As well as being more expensive, interceptors are not produced at the same rate as missiles. According to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Iran is producing, by some estimates, over 100 of these missiles a month. Compare that to the 6 or 7 interceptors that can be built a month. Now, I'm not endorsing this guy. This guy is just making very bold predictions and most of them are coming true. Zhang is a high school teacher in China, which is kind of weird because you would think a Yale graduate would gravitate towards a higher income job like, I don't know, investment banking, Wall Street, private equity, whatever, right? So that is kind of, I don't know, like just like a bit weird to me. And apparently a lot of people are skeptical about him because he openly criticizes the West. So they're labeling him as Chinese propaganda. But he's also been pretty vocal about Chinese state-controlled media. He even wrote an article about how it promotes tyranny and corruption on CNN. So let's see what unfolds next. Hopefully the oil and gas prices do not rise a ton. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully they don't recruit 6'4" feminists in the war. I mean, didn't Barron say that he was too tall? That's like us problems, bro. Ref, do something already.